I found out in the ER. Wife's secret that changed everything. Before we begin the story, make sure to subscribe to our channel and never miss more incredible stories every day. I'm sitting in a hospital room, pecking this out on my phone, trying to make sense of a life that just blew apart. Yesterday around 7:30 in the morning, my wife and I got into a bad wreck. I walked away with cuts and some bruises. My wife, Ashley, wasn't so lucky. Crushed shoulder, broken collarbone, 3 ribs cracked, a collapsed lung. The doctors say she should make a full recovery, but right now she's out of it, sedated heavy. I've got time on my hands, but I'm not sure I've got the heart for any of this. Still, here I am typing, because I don't have anyone else to talk to and I'm coming apart at the seams. If our marriage were fine, I wouldn't be here pouring this out, obviously. But I never saw this coming. I never pictured Ashley being unfaithful. Not even a little bit. Now my chest feels hollow. I'm walking around incomplete, and the missing piece is lying 3 feet away from me in this bed with tubes and beeping machines. That part stings worst of all. For about 3 months I felt us drifting, but I couldn't put my finger on why. We're both 34. We've known each other since we were kids. Started dating in high school, stayed together through college, got married a year after graduation. She's the only woman I've ever been with in any physical way, and until recently, she could have said the same about me. We had our son, Jacob, a year into the marriage. 3 years later, our daughter, Emma, came along, and I've been wrapped around her little finger ever since. I love those kids more than my own pulse. Truth is, if it weren't for them, I don't know where I'd be right now. Thank God they weren't in the car. They'd spent the night with my parents. We were supposed to fly to Florida yesterday afternoon for a cruise. That's out the window now. The night before the wreck, Ashley wanted to go out with her best friend, even though I told her to get home and stay off the roads. It was snowing hard. She promised she and her friend, Brittany, were just grabbing a couple of drinks before we'd be apart for a week. I went to bed and slept like a rock till about 5 a.m. When I woke up and checked out the window, her car wasn't out front and the snow was deeper. I figured Ashley and Britt must have had one too many and crashed at Britt's place. I threw on clothes, hopped in my SUV, and texted Ashley before I pulled out. Don't drive. The snow's bad. I'm coming to get you. The message sat there unread. I can't count how many times I've thought about that stupid little unread note since then. If she'd opened it, maybe everything would be different. Maybe I'd still be living with that knot in my gut, but not the misery swallowing me whole. I got to Brittany's condo and parked out front. Still no read receipt. I hoped she'd see the text and be waiting for me at the door in her coat. No such luck. The front door wasn't locked, so I stepped in and peeked into the TV room by the entryway. Empty couch. Britt's bedroom is downstairs and I didn't want to wake her, so I went up to the guest room, turned the knob, and walked in. That's where my life split in two. I remember the 2 heads on the pillows, barely poking out of the covers. I remember grabbing the edge of the comforter and tugging it back. I remember my wife laying her head on some guy's bare chest like she belonged there. After that, my memory comes in broken pieces. Brittany yelling, Ashley crying, and some half-dressed stranger and both of them trying to pull me off him. If they hadn't, I'd probably be in jail right now. I don't remember what I did, and I don't feel bad about it either, which probably says something about where my soul's sitting. When I came to, the guy's buddy showed up to haul him to the hospital. Ashley was sobbing. Britt was shouting. I told them I was leaving, and Ashley had 5 minutes to be in my car or not bother coming home. She made it in 3. It's a terrible idea to drive mad in a snowstorm, even with 4-wheel drive, but I did it anyway. It wasn't my anger that got us, though. Another car slid over the line, clipped us, and sent us through a guardrail. The passenger side door met one of those vertical I-beams like a hammer. The car rolled. Airbags saved our lives. That's what tore up Ashley. What happened after I found her? The kids still don't know we had a wreck. I haven't called anyone. I know I probably should. But this wasn't just a car rolling over on a snowy morning. My marriage rolled over too, and I'm trying to understand the damage before I pull other people into it. I'm numb and I hurt like hell at the same time, and none of it's from the bruises. I keep looking at the woman in that bed and wondering who she even is. I want to ask 1,000 questions. I don't want a single answer. If you love someone, you don't do what she did. So now I'm stuck wondering if she ever loved me at all. And even if she could love me again, would I even want that? I don't know the exact day she crossed the line, but for me the second she did, the marriage died. The vows were broken. I don't need a judge's stamp to know that. She tore it up herself. A big part of me wants to walk out of this room, call her folks, tell them what happened, and hand her back like lost luggage. We said for better or worse. And I meant it, but we're not a husband and wife anymore. I've thought about writing a note. Too bad, worse showed up after you ended us, and leaving it on the tray table. The only thing keeping me planted in this chair is Jacob and Emma. I want to see them so bad it aches, but I've got scratches on my face and neck, and they'd know something was off. As angry as I am at what Ashley did to herself and to our family, our kids still need their mom. I thought I had a partner for life. Turns out I didn't. But there are talks a dad just can't give the way a mom can. Sometimes a kid needs kisses instead of walk it off. I'm a good father, damn good, but I can't be a mother too. So I'm stuck here, watching the monitors blink, trying not to come apart. Do I call her parents? What do I say? If I keep quiet about the cheating, they'll still know I'm furious. And what do I tell my kids? We were in a wreck, covers the bruises, but I'm not built to fake feelings. Ashley must be, but I'm not. When I can't stand someone, it shows. They'll see I'm angry at their mother the moment I open my mouth. I already know I need a lawyer. That part's obvious. It's the how that's chewing me up. How do I sit in this room and look after the person who drove a knife into my back? How do I stay decent with someone who threw our life away for a night with a stranger? I keep coming up empty. By the way, if anyone thinks this is about me looking for attention, it isn't. I usually use my main account for memes and random junk. I made this throwaway because my head's not right and I needed to pour this somewhere or explode. I don't know if I need advice, a pep talk, a script, or just a place to scream. Maybe all of it. Update. For whatever reason, replies on my first post glitched. I could answer people, but nobody else could see the answers but me, which is exactly the kind of luck I've had lately. I tried dropping this update in the infidelity sub last night and ran into the same mess. So here I am, hoping it works this time, because I could use guidance and I owe some folks a thank you. After I posted, I decided to stay one more night in the hospital room. Ashley was sedated and the lights were low. I leaned back in the recliner and stared at the ceiling tiles, counting the beeps and the breaths. Part of me felt like just being in that room was more mercy than she deserved. Part of me still loved her. I hated that part. It made me feel weak. I kept running circles in my head, landing on the same spot every time. There's no fixing this back to what it was. It felt like a tornado blew through my life and left nothing but splinters. I cried like I haven't cried since I was a kid. That was one of those life markers you remember even if you want to forget. When a nurse came to draw blood the next morning, I slipped out. Ashley stirred and called my name as I headed for the door, but I pretended I didn't hear. I grabbed breakfast and tried to kill time scrolling on my phone. No appetite, just emptiness. I had a text from Brittany asking where Ashley was. I left it unread. At about 7 a.m., I decided it was late enough to knock on Ashley's parents' door. Her dad's an early riser. I figured I'd talk to him first and let him decide when to wake her mom. I saw smoke curling from the stovepipe on his workshop and knocked before stepping in. He saw the scratches on my neck and the bruise on my cheek, and I told him we'd had an accident. Ashley got the worst of it, but we needed to talk. I think he thought I meant the wreck and nothing else, so he woke my mother-in-law, and we sat in the kitchen. I explained how a car slid into our lane on a curve, how I kept us straight as long as I could with the heavier vehicle and AWD, how the guardrail finally took us, how the beam hammered the passenger side. Even with side airbags, Ashley hit hard. I told them her injuries, told them she was stable, told them the doctors expected a full recovery. They both cried, relieved their daughter was alive. Then her dad said they could help me with whatever I needed to take care of Ashley. And that's when I told them the wreck wasn't why I came. I spelled out the early morning, the unread text, walking into Brittany's place, and pulling back that comforter. I told them I swung and lost my head, and probably saved myself from a jail cell by a few seconds. They sat there stunned. Then I gave them Ashley's hospital room number and told them I always wanted them in the kids' lives. I hoped we could still be decent to each other. My dad had Jacob and Emma at his house. I said I was divorcing their daughter because she broke our vows, and I'm not her husband anymore. From there, I was headed to my dad's to tell the kids about the wreck, and then tell them we wouldn't be living together as a family. I promised I wouldn't tell them their mother cheated. They told me I shouldn't be so hasty. She made a mistake, and all that. I just smiled, thanked them for being good in-laws, and let myself out. At my dad's, I walked in through the kitchen and found him sipping coffee. As far as he knew, I should have been boarding a ship in the Caribbean. He stood and asked what I was doing there, and I just grabbed him in a hug and cried like a child. He wanted answers, I could tell, but he knew to let me break down first. He led me to the den to sit me on the couch and went to get my mom. We asked her to get a cup of coffee first, but she knew. If I was there alone that early, it wasn't good news. I told them about the cheating, about catching Ashley, about leaving Brittany's. Then I told them about the wreck, how bad it was, and the list of injuries. I told them I'd stopped by her parents' place an hour earlier so they could go see her. They listened, shocked. My mom finally asked what I was going to do, and I told them I didn't have a lot of choices. I was divorcing Ashley, and I was going to be the best father I could be to my children. They cried with me. While we were talking, I heard Emma squeal "Daddy" and thump down the stairs. Jacob wasn't far behind. I hugged them like I hadn't seen them in a year. Eventually, they noticed my scratches. I told them about the wreck and that their mom was in the hospital, but she was going to be okay. I told them their grandparents, her parents, would take them to see her. And I left it there. I spent that day holding them, playing with them, napping with them, listening to them laugh. Those two made me want to live again. If I'm honest, before that I was 50-50 on whether I cared to stick around. But they're worth the fight and every breath. Ashley's phone died in the crash, so nobody had heard back from her. Late that night, texts started coming in from my mother-in-law's phone. Had to be Ashley using it. I ignored them. They kept popping up through the night, so I killed my notifications. The next day I started calling divorce attorneys. Not because I wanted the drama, because we needed to split assets and figure out custody. What she does with who from now on isn't my concern. I met with a couple firms and liked the second one a lot. I've got a third consultation lined up to see if they surprise me. Either way, it keeps top options off her board, and that's a small victory I'll take. Custody is the mountain in front of me. I'm not after full custody. I don't even want it. The kids need their mother. But because of what she chose, she can't be part of my life anymore. We'll use a go-between for drop-offs and pickups. There's no reason for me ever to speak to her again. I obviously didn't know who I married. Why keep talking to a stranger? I'm due back at work next week, the time we planned to be on a cruise. I haven't told anyone we didn't go, and I haven't said a word about the wreck. People will see the rental car and ask if it's new. I don't know if I need to loop in HR. I don't want my personal hell turning into office gossip. I'm embarrassed enough without it getting legs. A few folks have told me to get tested, and they were right. I did a full STD panel. Everything came back clean. Thank God. Still made me feel like some trenchcoat creep even setting the appointment, and I didn't do a thing wrong. I'm guessing Ashley's out of the hospital by now. Her parents didn't bring her by, and even if they had, I wasn't reading her texts. As soon as I get the paperwork filed and she's served, I can be done with the biggest mistake of my life. I used to think all our years meant something. Turns out her choice erased all that. If I had a do-over, I'd pick anyone else, anyone who knew what loyalty meant. The one thing she had that mattered most, she tossed away, being trusted. Going from, I have someone who's mine, to I've got no one. That's what I'll miss. But I know now that so much of it was a lie, and I must not have meant anything to her. A lot of people prefer a pretty lie to an ugly truth. I'm not one of them. People want the details, who she slept with, why, how long. I don't have those answers, and I don't think I want them. Unless someone's putting a gun to your head, there's no excuse for cheating. And when you make a lifelong promise and then, without telling the other person, you choose to burn it down, that's vile. I wish I'd never met her. She gave me a life and then yanked it away without my consent. The man I was before her betrayal doesn't exist anymore. The woman I thought she was never existed at all. The home we built, turns out it was a movie set, nice from the street, nothing behind the facade. I did manage to hire a solid attorney, hands down one of the best in town for representing men in divorce cases. Her name's Lauren. I expected to get handed off to someone junior, but she took my case herself. Everyone at her firm has been decent and human about it, not just chasing a retainer. Lauren's actually checked in on my sanity more than once, which I didn't expect from a lawyer. We went through the usual intake, lists of property, bank accounts, rough income for me and Ashley. After I told her about the wreck and what I'd walked in on beforehand, she asked if I'd had an STD panel. I told her yes, all clear. Then she asked if I'd taken photos or video when I found Ashley. I hadn't been thinking like a detective, more like a grenade, so no. She called a private investigator she trusts, Tom, and set a meeting for the next day. We live in an at-fault state, and while I knew the truth in my bones, courts like evidence. Lauren also put one of her staffers in charge of being the go-between with Ashley's dad for kid swaps and any messages. I asked that the kids spend the coming weekend and the next week with their grandfather. The staffer made it happen. Then Lauren asked about counseling for me and the kids. I had my first session lined up for that week, but the kids didn't know anything yet, so I was waiting. She said when I'm ready, she's got a short list of good therapists. She gave sincere condolences in that calm lawyer way, and then handed me a to-do list. Most of it matched advice I've seen folks give online. One item was a curveball: grab 2 at-home DNA kits. Standard protocol, she said. I didn't argue. That night, after I got Jacob and Emma home, I did the cheek swabs for me and both kids, sealed the kits, and mailed them after school drop-off the next morning. 2 days later, Friday, Lauren's assistant picked up the kids for the weekend and dropped them with their granddad. I went to work, grabbed lunch, and when I got back to my desk, I saw 2 emails from the lab sitting in my personal inbox. I opened the first one. Jacob is my son. Deep breath. I opened the second one. I read it once. I read it again. Then the room went small, and I couldn't make a sound. I took screenshots and emailed both results to myself as photos, because some part of me knew I'd need a record. Then I walked to my car, shut the door, and cried until I was shaking. I'm telling you, I've never felt pain like realizing Emma isn't my daughter. It was like something reached in and unplugged my soul. I didn't know who to call. I just sat there and let it hit me. When I could move my fingers, I texted the images to Lauren. 20 seconds later she called, asked where I was. Work, was all I could say. She told me to stay put. Someone from the firm was on the way. I opened the car door and started vomiting. By the time I stopped dry heaving, a paralegal pulled up and drove me to the office. Lauren brought me straight into her conference room when she finished with a client. First thing she said was, sometimes labs mess up. She wasn't promising anything. She was trying to keep me from going off the cliff. She urged me to do a second test with Emma at a local lab, so there'd be no chance of contamination or mix-ups. I was numb. After catching Ashley cheating, I figured DNA testing was a formality. The idea that my little girl might not be mine felt impossible and, somehow, too possible. I couldn't even picture how to confront Ashley, especially without proof. Someone checked my blood pressure. It was high enough to worry them. I felt like a panic attack was pacing just outside the door. Still, logistics had to happen. Lauren's staff arranged for their go-between to pick up Emma the next day for a couple hours, take her to a sterile clinic for the test, and bring her back to Ashley's parents afterward. The result came the following day. No mix-up, no lab error. Emma is not biologically mine. I cried even harder the second time. I was grateful she wasn't there to see me fall apart. I forwarded the results to Lauren. She called to check on me and told me to lean on family, not try to carry this alone. I drove to my parents' house with tears in my eyes most of the way. My mom knew something was very wrong, but it took a while before I could get the words out. Emma is not my daughter. She asked me to repeat it, then realized I couldn't. She called my dad and told him to get home, carefully. When he arrived, the 3 of us cried for a long time. He'd console me. I'd console my mom. She'd console him. It was a mess. They asked about Jacob, and I told them he's mine. They were relieved, then immediately felt guilty for the relief. We talked about what comes next. I told them I didn't know for sure, but Emma would never go without what she needs, or most of what she wants. Child support numbers weren't even in my head yet. She's innocent. That mattered more than anything. Did I want custody of Emma? Could I even get it? Did Ashley know or suspect? I wanted answers. I needed them, and I didn't have a single one. Monday after work, I met with Lauren again. She'd already looped with Tom, the PI. Because of the wreck, Ashley hadn't been out and about, so there wasn't anything new to track. But I brought in an old phone of Ashley's that I found in a drawer. Tom got it to cough up its contents. Apps, messages, the works. Basically a mirror of her destroyed current phone. He found nude photos sent and received, tons of messages to various guys, plenty of explicit stuff, and enough plain English admissions to convince any judge. They asked if I wanted to see the pictures or read the messages. I said no. Next step, confronting Ashley about Emma. Lauren preferred we do it in her office if Ashley would agree. She called Ashley at her parents' number with me sitting there. It was the first time I'd heard Ashley's voice since the hospital. Lauren was direct. We need to talk. Ashley said she'd been wanting to. Lauren asked if Ashley had a lawyer. She didn't. She agreed to come the next afternoon. I was barely functional at work the next day. Pretending to be productive while trying not to cry at my desk is not a talent I've had to hone before. I left at 3 and headed to the firm feeling sick. I deliberately arrived early, so Ashley would be seated away from the door and couldn't lean on sympathy. I was scrolling old family photos, our perfect life, when she came in. She still had 2 casts from the wreck and needed help walking. I didn't have to worry about her coming in for a hug. Once we were seated, water on the table, Lauren asked if we could record. Ashley agreed. The second the recorder beeped, she tried to apologize. I cut her off. I asked, straight up, how many men, and when did it start? The PI had already given us a tally of confirmed hookups that told me the guy I caught wasn't the first by a mile. Ashley didn't know what we knew, so she played dumb, trying to admit as little as possible. I asked again, this time framing it. Since Jacob was born, ballpark, how many? That made her hesitate. She kept dodging. I started to lose it. Lauren put a hand on my shoulder and eased me back in my chair. Then Lauren asked Ashley a different question. Is he a good father? Ashley said I was the best father she could imagine, said it fast, like it was obvious. Hearing her say my children, in that syrupy tone, made me want to flip the table. Lauren followed with, do you think the other father of your child will be a good dad, too? Ashley blinked, confused. Lauren slid the paternity results across the table. As brutal as the last few weeks had been, I needed to be there for that moment, to see her reaction with my own eyes. She was shocked. Then she tried the line I knew was coming. You're her father because you raised her. I shut that down. I asked who Emma's biological father is. Ashley looked at her hands and said she didn't know for sure. That's when I broke. I had held my breath for days, and it all came out then. I cried hard enough that I couldn't see. Ashley cried too and asked to explain. She brought up the postpartum depression after Jacob. I remember those days. I did everything I could, changed diapers, did night feedings, took on the house stuff so she could rest. I honestly thought we got through that season and came out stronger. I was wrong about a lot of things. She said Brittany had finally pulled her back out into the world for a couple girls' nights, and on the second one she got blackout drunk and hooked up with a guy, let him touch her, and gave him oral in a parking lot. She felt guilty for months, she said. Then she started resenting being tied down. After that, she kept hooking up on those girls' nights. She claimed she never stayed out all night, until the night before the wreck, and tried not to catch feelings for anyone. She said she always used protection and never slept with the same guy more than 3 times. I just wanted sex, she said. Hearing that sent me into a math spiral I wish I'd never started. Lauren asked if she had any idea who Emma's father might be. Ashley insisted she always assumed Emma was mine. Lauren pointed out that something happened along the way. Maybe a condom broke? Ashley said that had happened a few times with a few guys. I lost it again. I asked her who she'd become, because I didn't recognize the person sitting across from me talking about this like she was ordering takeout. When did she start hating me? What did I ever do to deserve this? How could she do this to our daughter? I raged. She cried and took it. After that, the facts were simple. Divorce was a given. What used to be a marriage is now scorched earth, and all that's left is counting casualties. I've lost a wife and a daughter. That's 2. She's lost a husband. 3. Emma lost a father. Jacob's sister became his half-sister. Then you add 2 sets of grandparents. One person's choices burned down 2 families. Ashley admitted she used dating apps with Brittany, using girls' night as cover, and that she intentionally tried to avoid emotional connections. I never meant to hurt you, she kept saying. She swore she didn't know Emma wasn't mine. I actually believed that part, because I didn't know either, but DNA doesn't care what we believe. I asked why she didn't just divorce me if she wanted to sleep around. She said she didn't want to lose the security I gave her. She cried. I stared at her with nothing but disgust. On the financial side, I'm not exactly hurting. I inherited my grandfather's place and investments when I was a kid. I don't need Ashley's money and never did. She's got a job, and when she's healed, she can work. Part of me wanted to punish her in court. Another part wanted to be done as fast as possible. In the moment, all I felt was tired. I asked if she felt any shame. She said she did. I asked how we were supposed to find out who Emma's father is. She said she didn't have numbers saved because the whole point was to forget them. I told her the point of keeping one might have been to tell a guy he had a child, or that he'd given her an STD. As for paperwork, I told Lauren to get moving on having my name removed from Emma's birth certificate. The DNA is what it is. I also told her I'd keep supporting Emma by choice, because she's innocent, but I don't want any legal hooks that force me into contact with Ashley through Emma. On Jacob's custody, I'd originally been thinking something like 90-10 in my favor, with Ashley getting 1 weekend a month and some holidays. Now that Emma isn't mine, that math's more complicated. They're siblings, and I don't want to rip them apart. I just can't let Emma see me break down again. It would wreck her. Driving home after that meeting, I had a dark moment. For a few minutes, ending it seemed like it would spare everyone. But by the time I pulled into the driveway, I told myself, no, not like this. Lauren started drafting the divorce and the petition to have me legally declared not Emma's father. That'll slow things down, but I need a clean line legally. Her team also started mapping out ways to track down Emma's bio dad, DNA ancestry sites, potential relative matches, that kind of thing. It might point to an uncle or cousin if not the guy himself. Everything felt like chaos. Nothing stable. The kids were due back Sunday afternoon. For the first time in my life, I dreaded seeing my daughter because I didn't know how I'd react. Do I hug her and cry? Do I pull away? I didn't want to hurt her, but there was no version of this that didn't hurt someone. That scale's never going to balance. I told myself one thing: I will win the divorce. Lauren will make sure of it. But even if I win, it still feels like Ashley already took the prize that mattered. I'm left with a son she'll try to use against me and a daughter who didn't ask for any of this. Some people choose cruelty like it's a hobby. I had a child with one of them. That's on me to fix now. At 3 p.m. Sunday, Lauren's go-between, an intern named Jessica, texted me that she had the kids, buckled and safe, and was on her way to my place. I watched her sedan roll up from the bay window. I walked out with a smile glued on my face like it might hold me together. The second I saw Emma grinning at me from her booster, my eyes filled. I kept the smile anyway. Maybe if I smiled hard enough, the kids, and honestly, I could believe everything was okay. As soon as I unbuckled Emma, Jacob was right there, and I pulled both of them in, squeezing like I'd been underwater, and finally hit air. I missed you, was all I could manage without breaking. I cried. People can judge me however they want. This felt different than the day I first told them about the wreck. It hurt in a deeper place. Part of it was the family we used to be slipping through my fingers. Seeing her and knowing the truth split me in two all over again. Jessica was an angel, hauling bags while I played pack mule and tried not to fall apart. We got inside, and when I set their stuff down, Emma just looked up at me, those big eyes. She didn't say a word. She just stepped forward and wrapped her arms around my neck with everything she had. That did it. I squatted and hugged her back and let a few more tears go, because no 6-year-old should have to console a grown man. I felt a wave of anger at Ashley so hot it made my hands shake. But that little girl, whatever the paperwork says, showed me love the only way she can. In that moment, a hard truth hit me. She and I are both victims of the same person. Different angles, same blast. As the adult, I'm supposed to absorb more of the hit. So that's what I did. If we were the only two survivors of a plane crash, we'd have scars, but we'd stick together. That's our job now. I've been acting like Ashley took my daughter from me. Just as true, she took Emma's dad from her. The villain here is Ashley. I'm done apologizing for how I feel. There's no handbook for this. After about 30 minutes, I got myself back together. Jessica said her goodbyes, and I slipped her an envelope with $500 for gas. She drives an EV. She got the joke and gave me a hug along with the kids. We had a good little afternoon. I carried Emma, while Jacob gave me a tour of the wood projects he made with his granddad. Emma had helped stain, of course. I did my usual "I don't believe you" routine. Jacob joined in with a grin. That turned into a tickle fight, then a wrestling match. Hearing Emma squeal and Jacob laugh was like sunshine after a month of rain, sweet and brutal at the same time, because I know the road ahead isn't full of many moments like that. I put on some music. Emma's loved dancing with me since she was a baby. We've always looked ridiculous, and neither of us cares. I ordered takeout. Lo mein for Jacob, crab rangoon for Emma, because somehow that's her thing. I didn't eat much. My appetite has taken a walk lately. Dinner at the table with my kids felt like a blessing I didn't deserve and couldn't lose. School night, so it was baths, pajamas, teeth, the whole routine. Jacob likes to wind down with a book. I hugged him, told him I loved him, said I'd see him in the morning. I tucked Emma in and read a picture book, pointing at the drawings. She was drifting off, and I felt myself tearing up. I kissed the top of her head, and, for the first time since the DNA result, I said, I love you. Whether anyone wants to call me names, I don't care. Saying it out loud was like naming the truth. My love for her is real. It feels different now. Of course it does, but it's real. I was waiting for her little, I love you too. Instead, she said, Mommy loves you. I kept my voice soft and asked, Sweetie, why did you tell me that? She said Mommy told her. I asked gently if Mommy just said it or asked her to say it to me. Turns out Ashley had explained to the kids why I hadn't visited, why she wouldn't be coming home, and told them that her parents' house is her new home. Honestly, I was glad she admitted that part. But she also planted the line that I don't love her anymore, that I'm the reason we won't get back together. Jacob wandered in and said Mom told them I wouldn't let her come back because I didn't love her. What was I supposed to say? Yep, Dad's the bad guy. Not happening. I called our regular sitter and asked if she could come watch the kids for a few hours. Since they were in bed, she could study and get paid. She said yes. I drove straight to my in-laws. I didn't call. My mother-in-law walked me to Ashley's old bedroom where she's been recuperating. I put my hand on the knob and told my MIL we needed to talk privately. She saw my face and left us to it. I kept my voice low but firm and asked Ashley who she thought she was. Telling the kids our split is because I don't love her anymore. She said, well, it's true. I told her the reason I could never love her again is because she's a liar who betrayed her family, not because love magically evaporated. She said she'd apologized. I asked what good an apology does when the damage is permanent. If she felt any real guilt, why manipulate the kids? At what point did I become the villain? Without blinking, she said, when you didn't give me a second chance. I stared at her and asked if she'd mixed her pain meds with whiskey. That's the only universe where a person does what she did and then expects mercy and respect as if nothing happened. I told her I don't even know who she is anymore, like she's been body snatched by chaos. We talked for hours. She admitted after Jacob was born she'd been buried under postpartum depression and that I'd been a rock. She said she felt dead inside for reasons she didn't understand. I got her the best help I could find. She knew that. She also said that made her feel guilty, like she was letting me down while I carried us. I listened. I get that part. What I don't get is what came next. When Brittany started dragging her out of the house, at first it was coffee runs, then actual nights out. Ashley said getting hit on, being chased, felt like a shot of validation. The first mistake was when she was drunk and crossed a line with a guy. She felt awful. Then she told Brittany, who sold her on keeping the secret and moving forward. After that, she doubled down. Hook up sometimes, never get attached, never see the same guy more than a few times, keep it strictly physical, come home on time, act like a perfect wife. I reminded her of the weekend I took Jacob to meet my late mom's family, and she bailed last minute. She used that time to cheat. She said she was punishing herself, felt unworthy, all the mental gymnastics. None of it changes what she did. She even had a method. Get a number, flirt a little, pull back, let the guy chase on her timetable. Fishing, she called it. She admitted she never saved numbers because she didn't want strings. I told her she might have kept one to tell a man he had a child, or that he'd given her something. We hit the practical wall. Who is Emma's father? She doesn't know. The PI's recovered messages don't go back far enough. She says the bartender I suspected is too early on the timeline. Maybe it was one of the faceless, 3 times and done guys. Maybe a broken condom. Maybe a lie. We weren't getting answers that night. So I got inches from her face and told her the truth. She's caused pain I can't measure, and I won't let her hurt our children more. If anyone gets extra grace in this mess, it's me, the one who got blindsided. If she keeps weaponizing the kids, I will use every legal tool I've got. I told her if she has something to say to me, she says it to me, not through Jacob or Emma. The kids won't be messengers. Emma won't carry details about divorce or paternity. When the time comes for that conversation, I'll be the one who tells her, gently and clearly, and I'll make sure she knows we were both victims, and we survived. I also told her plainly, the kids would be staying with me for at least the next 2 weeks. She needed time alone to stare down what she's done. She's in 2 casts. I've got the kids. Let her feel some silence. On the drive home, I wished, not for the first time, that I could have known how this story ends before it began. We've got to tear down the sham and salt the earth so it doesn't grow back. But there's no world where I let a little girl get crushed between us. When Ashley and I are in the same room, the air turns toxic. The kids won't breathe that in. Not on my watch. Everything feels like every choice has 1,000 ripples. People keep saying, man up, DNA doesn't matter. I get what they mean. They're not wrong about not hurting Emma. That's the last thing I want. And I'm in her corner, fighting for her, shielding her, even when it means shielding her from her mother. No man is meeting my daughter until I say so. That's not Ashley's call anymore. If someday there's a guy, I'll check him out. I'll look him in the eye and decide if he's safe. Until then, it's me and my 2 kids, weathering the storm. I've kept the shrapnel off them so far. I'll keep doing it. Our souls are going to bleed a few times before this is over, but I'm standing between them and the blast every chance I get. I don't even recognize the life I used to have. It feels like I woke up from a long, pleasant dream and someone handed me the bill. The biggest update: I am no longer legally listed as Emma's father. DNA said what it said. A judge agreed. My name came off her birth certificate. Because Ashley and I are technically still married while all this churns, the legal label for me right now is stepdad, which is as weird to say as it is to type. When the divorce is final, on paper I'll be nothing to her, and she'll be nothing to me. What should have taken a couple of months took 4. The court needed the birth certificate squared away before the divorce could move forward the right way. The law is a stubborn machine. DNA will hand you an 18-year bill in one breath, and then ask a judge to weigh the child's best interest before letting you off a document in the next. I went into that hearing ready to prove I wasn't going to abandon Emma financially. Health insurance, extras, the stuff that keeps a kid safe. A lot of men in my shoes couldn't do that, and plenty shouldn't have to. The system's not fair just because I got a ruling that made sense for us. From the second I learned the truth, I kept running the same loop. How do I do right by Emma and not lose my mind? Grief wants to drive. Rage wants to drive. Neither gets the keys. Letting love alone steer would have been as reckless as letting hate decide. Legally, I could have cut ties with both Ashley and Emma and never once been wrong. Morally, I couldn't let an innocent little girl pay for her mother's years of lies. So I made a plan. The day after my name came off Emma's birth certificate, I filed to adopt her, to choose her, eyes open. That was always the path, but I had to test myself first. I needed to know whether seeing her would feel like a punch in the face or like the daughter I'd raised since she was tiny. I couldn't know that until I hugged her after the truth came out. When I did, I knew my love for her was still there. Different? Yeah. Damaged? Of course. But real. People can call that fragile or prideful or whatever word makes them feel big. I won't apologize for being human. If I'd walked away completely, the law would have knotted me through the exit. I didn't. And yes, Jacob being her brother mattered. But the deciding factor was simpler. She's my kid in every way that counts. On paper it might look like I ran in a circle, remove my name, then fight to put it back. But it wasn't a circle. The first was the truth. The second was a choice. Someday, when Emma is old enough to understand, I want her to know I didn't just default into being her dad. I picked her. When a judge asked her if she wanted me to be her daddy again, she giggled because it sounded silly. She didn't grasp the weight of the question. I did. I nearly came apart in the courtroom, happy in a way I didn't know I still had in me. She said yes without a thought and hugged me. I told her I loved her as her adoptive father for the first time, and I meant it with my whole busted heart. Legally, the rest moved fast, at least until it didn't. Ashley wasn't fighting for money she knows doesn't exist for her. Even her own lawyer admitted she had no shot at custody in her current state. The court appointed a legal aid witness to confirm she understood the papers. Her attorney got her to sign, notarized. A couple of hearings later, the divorce was essentially wrapped. A judge still had to stamp a few things, but the substance was done. I keep thinking about the day I told the kids the basics after Ashley's "Daddy doesn't love mommy" stunt. I took Jacob and Emma out for ice cream at the park. Jacob looked resigned and mad. Emma cried. I told them the one truth they need right now. I love you both, and your mom loves you both. I also told them that dad and mom don't love each other anymore, and that's a grown-up problem we're going to handle. Emma asked why I don't love mommy. I said mommy told a lie that hurt me very badly. Age appropriate, and no more. She hugged me like she could fix it. Jacob asked what happens next. I told them they'll live with me during the week in their home, and a court will decide which weekends they'll spend at their grandparents' with their mom. I promised we won't fight around them anymore. Emma said she wants Mommy to come live with us. I had to be clear, that's never happening. She said Mommy told her she wants to come back. I said I'm sure Mommy would like that, but for reasons I'll explain when they're older, Mommy doesn't get to live here again. Jacob asked how old he has to be to hear the rest. I told him it's not about age, it's about when his heart is ready. He rolled his eyes and called that a cop-out. I didn't argue. I just repeated, love your mom, be respectful. As far as they know, she hasn't done anything to them. One day they'll know. If I'm not here, there'll be letters. But I hope I'm the one who tells them, calmly, with the whole truth. Do I hate Ashley? With everything in me. I don't say that lightly, but I'm working on not letting that hate run my life. I've got a therapist now, Sarah, who deals with infidelity fallout and grief. Before I found her, I tried a couple others. One hinted that we all do things that push a partner away. Maybe that's true in some small, generic way, but I don't care if I left dishes in the sink. Nothing I ever did makes 1% of what Ashley chose to do understandable. I switched. Tried a guy next. Good man, not my speed. I'm not great at crying in front of dudes. Sarah gets me. She calls out my deflecting jokes, but she also lets me breathe. Her note to me: I can't outsource rebuilding my life. I have to do the work. Take stock. Repair what can be repaired. Amputate what's dead. Make peace with what isn't coming back. The kids see a counselor, too. Individual time, and then together with me. They're adjusting, considering the ground under their feet moved. I keep my mouth shut when they say they miss their mom. It stings, but it's not their job to carry my pain. Friends try to help. Drinks, ball games, pointing out women at the bar like I'm supposed to be flattered or healed. I'm not interested in hookups. Not now, and maybe not ever. The idea of a stranger's hands on me makes my skin crawl. I'm a personal space guy on a normal day, and now that dial snapped off. I don't judge anyone else's life, but I also can't pretend I'm built for that app world where swipes turn into sheets in an hour. Ashley didn't just nuke my trust. She made me see people differently. Not just women, people. I find myself squinting at sincerity, second-guessing kindness, wondering who else I've misread. She didn't turn me into a misogynist. She made me a misanthrope with a soft spot for 2 kids and a small circle of folks who've earned it. Some guy DM'd me to say I should be excited, single, financially stable, high value. I thanked him and didn't say the quiet part out loud. What he sees as opportunity, I see as anxiety. I'm not a monk. I'm just done. Ashley took something that used to be pure for me and dragged it through mud I'll never wash off. Right now, beauty doesn't register. Connection feels theoretical. Maybe that changes someday. Maybe it doesn't. Either way, I can live with that. I already am. A lot of folks asked about Brittany and whether I'd crossed paths with her since that morning. Short answer: no contact. I don't know how tight she and Ashley are now. The kids haven't mentioned her once. But I did set one little domino in motion. I told an old buddy what happened. Picked him because his wife is the friend group newswire. Brittany owns a salon with 9 stylists when fully staffed. After the story did its rounds, 2 stylists left. Maybe they found greener pastures. Maybe they didn't like working for someone who helped blow up a marriage. I can hope. When things are finalized, I won't be shy about telling the truth. I ran into Ashley's sister, Mandy, at the grocery store. She hugged me and apologized for her sister's choices. I know some people would say no contact with the other side, but I've always liked Mandy and her husband, Doug. I invited them and their kids over to swim and grill. While the kids cannonballed and Doug babysat the burgers, Mandy and I talked where little ears couldn't overhear. Turns out, Ashley had fed her family a watered-down version. A couple of short affairs after Jacob was born, then she got caught. When Mandy said, "a couple," I asked what that meant to her. 2 or 3, she said. I went inside, grabbed a folder with printouts, just the texts, and set it in front of her. I explained we'd verified 47 different men since Jacob's birth, and that was just the part you could count. The app hookups leave fewer breadcrumbs. Mandy went quiet first, then teary, then furious. She wanted to call her parents right then and read them chapter and verse. That's when it hit me. Nobody had told them the worst part, Emma's paternity. I'd assumed Ashley would tell her own family. She hadn't. Mandy looked like she'd been hit with a board. Doug had to step away from the grill to steady her. She gave me a shaking hug and said she was so sorry. Doug came back with red eyes and gave me one of those "I've got you" pats on the back. He asked about the guy I'd found in Brittany's guest room, how bad I hurt him. I told Doug I left the guy unconscious with an eyelid drooping like a basset hound. No cops ever called. His buddy must have decided the ER was a better bet than the station. Doug said I should have finished the job. I told him if Ashley and Brittany hadn't tackled me, I might have. He asked if anyone had a bead on Emma's bio dad. I said Ashley slept with too many strangers to know. Once the divorce and the civil stuff were over, we'd go the DNA route. Maybe find a cousin or uncle first. They were glad to hear Ashley would get steamrolled in court and that the kids and I were in steady therapy. About an hour after they left, my phone lit up, calls and texts from her parents' numbers and some unknowns. Then Mandy called. I could hear yelling in the background. She stepped outside and told me she'd filled her folks in on everything, the real body count and Emma's DNA. Her dad was throwing Ashley's things in her car. Her mom was weeping and calling her own daughter a slut. That word from your mother, that's a bell you never unhear. Ashley grabbed Mandy's phone and asked if it was me. Mandy asked what I wanted her to say. I told her, let her speak to me. Ashley started pleading. Why was I trying to destroy her life? Because you destroyed mine, I said. She said we could have our life back if I'd just forgive her. I told her that life never existed. It was built on lies. She insisted she loves me. I told her the only things she's ever loved are herself and attention, and she risked our family for both. She demanded to know why I ratted her out. I asked why she hadn't told her own parents the truth, especially about Emma. She yelled that I am Emma's father. I said, I'm her dad and always will be. That's different. She said her parents were disowning her and kicking her out. I told her I'd heard, and that consequences are the rent you pay for years of lying. She said I was cruel. I said she should have asked herself that 6 years ago. A few days later, Lauren got a call from Ashley's new attorney asking for a meeting. We sat across from them in the conference room. They led with the sympathy card. Ashley had been living in her car since her parents tossed her. I asked why she wasn't staying with Brittany, the ringleader. Ashley didn't answer. She asked if I'd let her come home or try counseling. I told her the home where my kids live is off limits to hussies, hoes, and harlots. As for marriage counseling, she could try that with the next man foolish enough to tie himself to her. Her lawyer bristled at my language. I told him he was a whore too, billing by the hour to defend one. We took a break, so I wouldn't say something the walls would remember. In the parking lot, I stared at Ashley's car, fast food bags in the passenger footwell, clothes piled in the back. For a second I pictured Home Sweet Home keyed on the hood. Cameras on the building talked me out of it. Back inside, Lauren kicked me under the table to stay on script. She asked Ashley if she'd seen a therapist yet. Ashley said no, money's tight, insurance won't cover. Lauren asked if she'd go if we paid. My head whipped over so fast I almost sprained my neck. Lauren kicked me again. Ashley's lawyer said only a therapist they choose. Fine. Lauren said therapy might help her regulate emotions and be a better mom down the line. I still didn't see the play, but I trusted Lauren. Ashley asked about family therapy with me and the kids. I kicked Lauren this time. Lauren, without missing a beat, said if Ashley did a few solo sessions and the professional recommended it, we'd consider it. I still didn't see the angle. I looked at Ashley and asked a question that's been boiling. Was all that cheap, meaningless sex worth it? Was the rush worth losing a husband and custody of your kids? She cried and said no. I asked if she felt any shame, not just regret for getting caught. She said she did, especially now that her family knew. I asked what I'd ever done to deserve that level of betrayal. She didn't have an answer. When the tears turned up a notch, I told her to save them for someone who hadn't seen the receipts. We ended the meeting with her lawyer practically steering her by the elbow. When the door shut, I turned to Lauren and said, "What was that about paying for therapy?" She explained it plainly. It makes me look reasonable to the court. And more to the point, Ashley is barely holding it together. If a reputable clinician says she needs to be hospitalized for her own safety, that's not our fault. We offered help. If she goes and the therapist calls for a 72-hour hold, then that's the system working. I didn't feel one flicker of guilt. She hid the truth for 6 years. I can keep our real strategy quiet for 6 days. As for Brittany's salon, word spread. Clients asked stylists how they could still work there. 2 more left. I'll admit that gave me a petty kind of peace. The kids? They're doing as well as they can on shifting ground. Jacob's pitching in Little League. Tall kid, big strike zone, still mowing them down. I'm taking him and Doug's boys to see the Sox play the Tigers next week. Emma is sunshine and water, lives in the pool, loves when the backyard is full of friends and snacks. I want them busy with life, not screens. Maybe that makes them weird later. Fine by me. They'll be my kind of weird. Every day brings some new curveball, but we're catching more than we drop. And that's enough for now. A few weeks back, I logged into this burner for the first time in almost a year. Tons of messages. Part of me wanted to close the tab and disappear, because rehashing the wreckage slows the rebuilding. But strangers here helped steer me when I couldn't see straight. So here's the last chapter. Right after my last post, Lauren, my attorney, nudged Ashley toward therapy. I hated the idea of paying for anything that might help her, but I trusted Lauren's strategy. Ashley picked a local psychiatrist, walked in, and promptly fell apart. The doctor admitted her overnight to the psych ward for observation. One night turned into many weeks, then months, across a couple hospitals. HIPAA being what it is, I never got a diagnosis. All I heard from her lawyer was heavily sedated and not herself. It slowed our court calendar, but not the piece that mattered most to my heart. Because Ashley wasn't contesting and her counsel could appear for her, the judge still heard my petition to adopt Emma. That day is going to live in my bones forever. Emma thought it was funny that a judge asked if she wanted me to be her daddy. She giggled and said yes. She didn't understand why my voice shook when I told her I loved her as her adoptive father for the first time. I did. I needed to know that seeing her wouldn't just feel like a reminder of betrayal. It didn't. It felt like choosing my kid on purpose. With that done, the divorce became paperwork. A legal aid rep verified Ashley understood what she was signing. Her lawyer got the signatures notarized. 2 quick hearings later, the judge finalized it. No alimony. No property split beyond what the law requires. Custody solidly with me for now. If someday she becomes safe and stable, she can petition. Big if. Ashley's family. They cut ties. They were humiliated by what she'd done and by how long she'd lied. I didn't gloat. I just kept the kids' routine steady. Weeks went by with no word, until the day the hospital released her. Nobody notified us. Confidentiality and all that. She went from the hospital to her car, parked behind her lawyer's office, and drove straight to the kids' school to make a scene in the office about seeing them. The principal called me. I told them to call the police, and I headed over. 2 patrol cars, an ambulance, a cafeteria turned makeshift interview room. It was a circus. I showed the officer our custody order and said she wasn't seeing the kids in that condition. He told her to leave school grounds and not return without a court order. She cried that the kids were the only people left who loved her. They're children, I said. They don't know better. It was ugly. She left. I suspected she'd try to follow us, so I looped a few blocks. The dash cams Lauren made me install, front and rear, audio rolling. Caught her pulling out to tail us. I drove straight to the station, played the footage, and 2 days later a judge signed a restraining order, 200 yards from me and the kids, no contact except attorney to attorney. I expected her to violate it. She didn't. She vanished. 2 months later, a manila envelope showed up, postmarked Sydney, Australia. Inside was a long letter from Ashley. The gist, she unraveled in group therapy when other patients, people with real trauma, looked at her like she'd tossed away a charmed life. She admitted the morning I caught her, what crushed her wasn't my anger. It was seeing in my eyes that my love was gone for good. She wrote pages of rationalizations. Humans aren't meant to be monogamous. She would have let me sleep with others, as if that's generosity. Random hookups made being a wife and mom feel less suffocating. All the sex was just physical, so her heart still belonged to me. Then she said the quiet part out loud. She'd rather I never knew, so I'd keep loving her. When she got released, nobody in town would touch her. No friends, no job, no welcome at her parents'. She pawned a few things, cashed out her 401k to avoid the IRS by leaving the country, met a guy online, and flew to Australia. He has a son who needs a mom. I pity that kid, and I pity the man who thinks he's bringing home a rescue when he's opening his door to a tornado. Ashley closed by saying my petition to remove my name from Emma's birth certificate broke her, but my petition to adopt Emma broke her more, because it proved I could still choose love, just not for her. Then she promised we'd never hear from her again. I hope she keeps that promise. Therapy has peeled back something I didn't expect. I was angrier at myself than at Ashley. Not for her cheating. That's all on her. But for choosing so poorly, for missing red flags, for believing words that actions contradicted. Sarah told me forgiveness can be less about absolving the other person and more about letting myself off the hook for not being a mind reader. I'm working on it. Some days I'm okay. Some days I'm all elbows in grief. People asked about Brittany. The short version, after Ashley was booted from her parents, she went to Brittany's. That lasted about one fight, with hair pulling, screaming, and a door slam that ended the friendship. Word spread about Brittany's role. 2 stylists left her salon. Clients bailed. Within a couple months, she couldn't make lease and shut it down. Last I heard, she's hosting at her brother's restaurant in Connecticut. Not my circus. A lot of you asked if I've told Emma the whole truth. No, not yet. I go back and forth about timing. DNA sites could help us find her bio family someday. But they also notify matches, and I don't want strangers showing up at our door while she's still learning long division. She's healthy, and right now her identity needs stability more than a family tree. My leaning, wait until mid to late teens at least, maybe adulthood, and let her decide if and when to search. If some medical issue ever required paternal history, I'd navigate it then. For now, I'm her dad. Period. On dating, I've had more "you're a catch" pep talks than I can count. I appreciate the intent. I can't force want. The hookup stuff isn't just not me. It's the opposite of me. If I ever try again, it'll be slow, honest, and in daylight. I'm not chasing novelty. I'm protecting 2 kids and a battered heart. Which brings me to the one surprise I didn't see coming. Some of you swore there was energy between me and Lauren. I laughed that off until my therapist asked why I was working so hard to pretend chemistry didn't exist just because I'm scared of it. After a lot of pacing, I called Lauren and asked if I could swing by to get her opinion on a few things. When I showed up with no files, she gave me that sideways smile lawyers use when they already know the answer. I told her the truth. I'm terrified and also tired of letting fear drive. I said we're different. She has no kids. I've got 2. She's petite. I'm a walking doorframe. My flirting skills are a 1998 flip phone. She laughed and said she's tougher than she looks, and that big things come in small packages. I blurted that I wasn't ready for sex, and she nearly spit out her coffee laughing. Dinner, man, she said. So we set one. Thursday night, nice restaurant. Then a martini bar I like. Long weekend after that. No promises. No performance. Just 2 people trying. If it works, great. If it doesn't, also fine. The goal isn't to prove anything to anyone on the internet. The goal is to live a decent life and raise decent kids. To close the loop, Jacob is pitching lights out and eating everything in the house. Emma is basically a mermaid and the backyard is her kingdom. I'm working a job I enjoy and coming home to a place that feels safe again. The hate is quieter. Not gone. Quieter. Australia. I'm sorry a new invasive species washed up on your shores. I truly hope she stays there. To everyone who helped me chart a course when I was spinning, thank you. This will be my last post. I'll answer a couple comments and then log out for good. I want my kids to look back and see a dad who did the hard things quietly and chose them loudly. One last thing I've learned the hard way. You can't unspill ink into milk. But you can set the glass down, walk outside, and teach your kids to throw a baseball and build a life that tastes clean again. That's what we're doing.